Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel. I'm the CEO of Bakamo, and allow me to welcome Erinrose to this podcast.
Hi there.
We are going to talk about a social media intelligence study that we've been doing together with Erinrose over quite a long time. And it's our opportunity today to really start talking about it and share with some of the insights that we found, which are, I believe, truly profound, even if that's a big word. But Erinrose, before we begin, would you introduce yourself?
Sure, a pleasure. Hi, my name is Erinrose Sullivan. I'm a video game veteran for over 20 years now. I'm almost ashamed to say that. I've worked in companies like EA and Ubisoft, and I continue to support numerous my company, ST Consulting. So voila, that's me. As a marketing and strategy expert, this is what I do.
And the two of us have been working on several projects over the last couple of years together. And I think it was last May, maybe, when we were commissioned by CCP, the makers of EVE Online, to explore a phenomenon that they heard of, or they suspected, or they had anecdotal evidence of, but they had actually, no insight or no genuine understanding of. And the phenomenon that they were talking about was something like that they've heard, or they had some stories of players who played EVE Online, and that they actually, because of something happened in the game, and they got better jobs or did something together, or that community that forms in EVE becomes somehow something happens. And Erinrose and I, we took this on.
And maybe we'll just take a step back, Daniel, for a moment, just in case your audience, because it's a very, EVE Online, CCP, it's not only video games tend to be a specific space, as they're more mainstream with, the business is over 150 billion a year now worldwide. But EVE Online is a very specific game within the world of games. It's an MMORPG, which means a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. So it's a subscription-based game online that's been around, I think now it's 17 years. It might be a little bit more. And it has hundreds of thousands, if not millions of players around the world that have been playing the game. But it's also specific. MMORPGs also are kind of a very specific niche within the world of gaming. And within that, EVE Online is a very specific game within that world, an incredibly rich community, an incredibly driven player base. So with that, yes, we were tasked to better understand that very rich audience of people.
And what we then started doing is also taking the structure and management philosophy of CCP, so to make sure that we understand that, and which is really centered around the Maslow pyramid. And this is a lot of how their product, their processes are set up and are working. So we took that framework and applied it and analyzed the actual conversations that EVE players have in the public social media space, because there are a zillion different channels that they talk to each other in the game, hidden Discord channels here and there. It's an extremely complex ecosystem, and there are a couple of I would say intersections where we, with technology and a lot of manual labor, can go in and actually also read what they are talking among each other. So think of like forum sites, think of Reddit subreddits, think of specific forums hidden somewhere in the world that you can find with specific software and pull in the content. But still then, what we did went way beyond what you can do with keywords, because if you're looking for something as a floating idea that something happens in their real life, you don't know what to keyword for, of course. So you have to read tens of thousands of conversations to actually get an idea. When are they talking about what? How are they talking about it? Because there's so much shit talking in that game. It's the whole game logic, and you learn that through these conversations, is one based on deceit and shit talking and posting, and it's an extremely realistic world. And maybe, Erinrose, you jump in here a little bit.
Yeah, and again, I would talk to the very the very uniqueness which is Eve Online. Not only there's the game, and as I said, it's a massive multiplayer online role-playing game, an MMORPG, where you play online in this this space universe of Eve, where you join alliances and communities in the game, core and alliance. You can have any type of role in the game. It's really almost another world that you can experience. And another element of that is the actual game. You can play, but there's also, and this is something that you really don't see in other games, there's the meta of the game, which is playing. It's the conversations online with others that actually doesn't involve you in the game, but maybe disruption of other alliances. Maybe it's engaging with other groups to undermine them, but it doesn't actually have anything to do with gameplay within the game. So again, there's this rich texture that we can find online that doesn't only strictly exist in the WeChats or the WhatsApp discussions within cores and alliances that might include 50, 100 to 20,000 people, but really are happening online, and particularly in a subreddit for Eve or in Eve forums. And as well across the internet, you'll find these rich conversations of a lot of things going on in and outside of Eve.
And just to stress how crazy it is, I mean, in some of these battles that they have, Eve players, they would destroy, and that sometimes crosses into mass media, they would destroy hundred thousands of dollars worth of stuff, of, which sounds a little bit awkward, but actually it's, they somehow paid for it. There's obviously some internal money, ISK, I think, which is, because Eve itself is a full universe. Sorry.
Yeah. Interstellar kroner that you grind for and mine for and work for to build your ships, only to find yourself in a battle going on raids, or find yourself into a world war within the game where thousands of people are fighting one another, and hundreds of thousands of value, actual real world value in ships are being destroyed in these battles. So yes, sometimes it does cross into the real world. I think it was 2018 I think was the last, 2016, 2018 was one of the last big battles, and you'll see it in some of the great, online experiences and battles, Eve always being quoted for these types of things. So again, this richness of engagement of this community and what it brings.
And if you're here, I mean, maybe it shows how strong this community is, that they, just before Corona hit, there was, I think, the bushfires in Australia, and they donated to that, right?
Yes, they raised money. There's a lot of activity within the game of raising money. Even, there'll be like CCP itself doing things, working with the community, but also the community themselves. I know Eve North in Canada does a lot of things. You'll have, when they're getting together with their FanFest events, there'll be groups raising money for various activities and supporting the community itself, raising money outside, but actually helping people within the community of gamers as well. So it's really quite rich, and it's sort of this other world, or it's this other world that allows people to engage and develop richness of connection and community very strongly.
So you can imagine how intricate, complicated that conversation space is. So, which is why, we at Bakamo deploy, human readers to read through tens of thousands of conversations and read between the lines to eventually find a range of conversations where people were talking about the positive effects gaming had on their real life. And that's when we collected thousands of these conversations over a long time span. We went back in the time, so we did all that magic to get that very valuable qualitative raw material to do an analysis. And what we found was extraordinarily revealing, surprising, counterintuitive, because, before going into the detail, what we found is that people who play Eve or the game sort of nurtures the skills and competencies for them to get better jobs, for example, or just have richer, fuller lives. And we were able to show that sort of pathway of what happens. And this is what I'm going to talk you through, hopefully quickly now. And as I talk, there will be a couple of slides swirling around. So with this slide, what you see right now, you are seeing the Maslow pyramid, and the top 4 layers of it. We remove the bottom one. So and what you see is that they actually fall into 2 big parts. On the bottom part, the love and belonging and safety and fairness part, what happens in the game is that when people start playing the game, and it's a really hard game to learn. I would I've never tried. I don't think I'm up, capable of doing that. But I mean, the people who try and succeed, they succeed because
They have to really like complexity. You have to have a sort of a learning mindset, and you really have to like complexity. And in some ways, some people come into the game, and also, if you have an interest in science fiction, that's also a plus, but doesn't seem to be a requirement in these types of things. But definitely liking complexity, and even some people are up to the challenge. Hearing it is the hardest game to get into. People sort of challenge accepted, and you'll find yourself with Eve.
So as it turns out, what decides who manages or not is, while it's a highly sci-fi, interplanetary, interstellar trading and spaceship game in a way, it is about connections. It's about making people meeting other people. I think they're called capsuleers. They meet each other, and it's through these personal connections that people have to form that really sets you up for success in the game. Because it's all about trading, knowing, learning, talking, actually. And what we've seen is that the Eve universe, basically creates that sort of, I don't know, playground, sandbox in a way, that is safe enough, that is, where people can actually get to know people. And, as French philosophy tells us, you actually learn about yourself only through the other. So it's these people who often they are, let's put it like, made lonely or alone or like stereotyped or stigmatized or whatever it is that they but they actually can encounter really smart people and form meaningful connections with them. And we've seen this conversation really on 2 levels in this bottom part of the pyramid. One is that it creates this somehow a better butterfly effect, that it protects people. There are stories, like one, for example, that really stuck in my head was a lady whose house was destroyed by a thunderstorm or a tornado somewhere, and literally the only thing that was standing was a table with her computer, and she took an extension cord and asked the neighbor for electricity and internet, and went online and shared her catastrophe with her community, Eve. And I think literally in 2 days, her life was back on track. Because someone knew someone, duck, 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 duck. And, everything somehow sorted out. And actually her life got better afterwards because she found a new job, all of that stuff. So you have that sort of support network, and you have a side of genuine friendship, of like vets, like people who've been in the trenches together. They wait for years to save up money to go and become the best man on someone's wedding, or or open a shop together, or do something together, or meet up. And clearly CCP is an incredible company in that it really pushes it has these annual meetings where they all fly somewhere in the world. It's always around, and they meet, and they can be together for a couple of days. And Erinrose, you've been to one of these, right? Or several.
Their fan fest, yes. The past year, the previous year, they happened sort of all over the world. They had a number of, like, they're having it every year in Las Vegas, or it's shifting now. But it was supposed to be back this year, due to events, like most events, canceled. But surely we'll be back on track for next year. But yes, it's sort of like the moment, and meeting gamers that go to this. This is some, they try to make it an annual event to go up to Reykjavik. And it's really sort of a highlight for a number of players to be part of that, and also to find those folks that they play with from around the world.
So and it is this genuine friendships that are, people don't have many of these genuine friendships, but these are you can, just by the behavior people report on or talk about, or what they have done or their friends have done for each other, or that closeness, that is, not very not many people have that, or it's something very special, I think, in everyone's life to have just these genuine friendships, and the friendships they make through this game, through Eve, they last a lifetime, and they're very meaningful for them. So this is really what happens on the bottom layer, and you see that the pyramid is a little bit gapped because there's something really strange happens. I mean, from a researcher's perspective, strange. Basically, the way people talk changes. They are not talking about things that happened in a way, but they actually start talking self-referentially. So they involve themselves, they see their skills, they somehow put themselves into more of a context. It becomes a different language. It becomes a different state of mind as well. Because what happens, because Eve provided that realistic, real, like an alternative real world with real friends, they actually were able to, start seeing themselves, and they start talking about the skills that they glean from Eve Online through the playing, and actually can use. Of their discussions, we could see the sort of spectrum of the skills that are evolving there.
Yeah, absolutely. They through this game, again, the complexity of this game, you're in another world, so you have to sort of survive that world. You have to take on a number, you have to build up your own skill sets. And you can be anything in this game. Like I said, you can be a miner, you can be an explorer, you can be going to the market to exchange what you've mined for. You might be a hauler, where you're, hauling other ships, and helping being build, sourcing for other people. There's the economy within the game. So all of a sudden, you need to start to know certain things or develop certain abilities in order to, in a certain way, I don't know the word, to succeed, or to be able to deliver in certain ways in the game. And, over that time, as you have to maintain spreadsheets to follow what's going on, or follow the economy, or what you're selling. You're starting to develop knowledge and understanding about economies and when to sell things. When needs are happening within your alliance for certain things, you're starting to understand supply chain management. So all of these things you're developing this, and all of a sudden maybe you have a role. You are in charge of your alliance in some capacity. So you're leading people. So that requires, all of a sudden you have to develop leadership skills, and you're managing people through WhatsApp and getting phone calls from that starts to extend outside the game. So all of a sudden you start to take things on, because in some cases we see, well, nobody else is doing it, and I realized someone's got to do it, so it was me, and then I realized I was good at it. And this is the types of conversations you start to see. Things weren't actively soot, in many ways, but these skills through the course of the game start to develop that are actually sort of become also real life skills.
Exactly. And that's basically what happens on the self-actualization level, when they not only talk about the skills that they gained, and sort of the resilience, the learning mindset, the understanding. I think resilience may be one of the most interesting things, because you might have a huge spaceship with billions of guns, and then you get infiltrated and it all blows up, and there you are with nothing. Frustration, because obviously that leads also to horrible feelings. I mean, you're totally vested in this, but you need to get up and move on. And that's the resilience. And because it's a social game, it's less horrible than it happens in real life, but you actually are ready for when it happens in real life. And you understand that a lot of the logic that, what Erinrose was just saying, I mean, it is the same. So these skills, and let me just blank that in here so you can read that through. But what I think it is really interesting to look at is how, yes, there are a lot of really what people call, I guess, hard skills like supply chain management, or Excel, or raw data analysis, or these concrete things. But probably as what becomes so much more, maybe I'm biased, I'm a qualitative researcher, but I think it's a higher order skill to be able to have a critical view, to actually sense when people are screwing you over, to know how to manipulate, to know how to be resilient.
Manage complex situations, develop your own diplomacy, those leadership skills, even marketing oneself, marketing the situation. Those are all sort of linked to that. Those are all kind of like cascade down from sort of a critical mindset and an understanding, and a kind of way to read situations and scenarios. And I think that is a highly evolved skill broadly of EVE players.
Yeah, I mean, if I would need to, like, it's sort of the wisdom of, and common sense of the last century, with sort of the technological capabilities or the openness to deal with other type of stuff of the current and the future. So that it gives them, an Excel sheet, an API. It's sort of the blueprint of the ideal colleague or boss or whoever you want to have in any company, because they've been out there, they've done it. Literally, they've mined asteroids already. And
hey, also help discover some exoplanets.
Yeah, I mean the crossovers, these loopings between the real world and the EVE universe are just incredible. But yeah, so basically, what we were able to do is to use social media intelligence to go in and prove and understand the sort of step-by-step flow of what happens to people who get engaged and start playing EVE and start using EVE in a way for fun. And as a side product, maybe they didn't even notice it, they end up with a set of really high value skills and competencies.
And I'd say, in this climate that we're in today, just to add, we're all finding ourselves social distancing. We're all finding ourselves indoors, probably in front of screens more than usual, more than we'd like. But with that's coming this sort of shift. Even the World Health Organization, about a year ago talked about gaming addiction, or a little bit more than a year ago. And now the World Health Organization is working with gaming companies, talking about playing a part together. So this kind of like this circle that's happening with games, and something like EVE not only is something that you can connect with others, but as a side benefit, as Daniel said, you're learning something. And in many ways, that importance of still being able to learn, still being able to connect, despite everything, it's quite special within gaming, and this one particularly. I think it's quite an unusual time to see the sort of that role that the gaming is playing.
So yeah, I mean, and so basically what we found, we called EVE Effect, and we are really happy that both CCP has taken this term on and actually taken on a mission, basically based on this research.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like we put to words, even defining and coining that term, that was like, of course. When they had a lot of anecdotal evidence around them of this, and we're trying to, what is this? What is this sort of like ephemeral thing? And this research really brought it all together, providing all that insight around this community. It's, in fact, what this is, what this connection is, what this learning starts to happen, what this self-actualization starts to deliver. It is EVE. It's the EVE effect. And I think it's quite interesting how powerful that this phrase has become that it just passed right through a company. Like, of course, that's what it is, you know, and that's nothing's better than when something becomes so obvious they don't even know where it came from. So that's quite exciting for not only the organization, but even the community picking that up as well now.
So yeah, I mean, we are continuing to work with Eve to actually take the Eve effect and help the HR community to actually make use of this and learn it. And with this, actually break down the stigma of gaming and remove it and disrupt it, because clearly clearly there is something really wrong with the connotation that, you know, if you're playing, you're actually, yeah, wasting your life away. Because we can clearly see that for some people with some games, or at least EVE Online, actually, yeah, they're having fun and learn. And there's absolute that whole positivistic rational expectation that that's a waste, and there's a differentiation between play and work, which there shouldn't be really. There, yeah, that's somehow bad or stigmatized. And so that's a really exciting next chapter of this project that we are really excited to work on. And yeah, and it's another great example of working with you, Erinrose.
It's been a pleasure. I will look forward to these next steps.
All right. Thank you
Great.
very much for watching, and see you soon.